One of the most interesting new features in Photoshop CS4 is the Content-Aware Scaling tool. This is a really interesting new technology that Adobe acquired that does intelligent rescaling of images based on their content. In this particular photo, we have a relatively simple background consisting of sky and trees and a foreground subject, Susan, who has a decent amount of complexity, visual complexity. So the idea behind content-aware scaling is that Photoshop will scale the parts of the image that have low complexity while retaining the details and the aspect ratio of the detailed part of the picture. So what we're going to do here is use the Select All command to select the whole image. You could also do content-aware scaling on smaller rectangular selections of the image. And now I'll go to the Edit menu and choose Content-Aware Scaling. You can also get it by doing Command-Option-Shift-C. Bring that up, and what we have are the standard kind of resize handles that you would see in Photoshop's normal scaling command. I'll just go and click on one and drag it, and the results are pretty obvious. We see the sky and the tree on the left-hand side of this picture scaling, but for the most part, Susan is not changing at all. It's very different than the way that a normal scale would work, where you'd see the whole image distorting. Now, if you look at the arm, you see how it's moving, you see how it's actually distorting. That's because Photoshop doesn't see a huge amount of brightness differential between that arm and the background. It doesn't see a lot of visual complexity in the arm. So what we have to do is help Photoshop along by creating just a very basic mask area for that arm. And also I'm seeing the shirt. As I bring it in here, you can see the shirt on the right there is also kind of caving in. That's because in that shadow area there's also not a lot of visual complexity, so Photoshop is basically assuming that it can scale that part as well. Alright, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to press the Escape key on my keyboard. We'll come out of the Content-Aware Scale, and I'll come over to my Channels palette, and I'm going to make an alpha channel, or a mask, to specifically protect the arm and the part of under her shoulder that's getting distorted. I'll click on the New Channel icon in the Channels palette, and here I see basically just a completely black brand new mask. I'm going to turn on the color channels, and so what I'm seeing now is the mask channel overlaid as kind of a virtual ruby litho mask. I'll click on my paintbrush tool, and what I'm going to do here is paint white paint into where her arm is, right there. And it doesn't have to be real precise. In fact, I might say, okay, it's coming out a little bit too much into the background here. So I'll flip the colors of my foreground and background color swatches, and I'll make a slightly smaller brush by using the bracket keys on my keyboard. Left bracket to make the brush smaller. And now I'll paint black paint back into here, so that those parts of the sky and the tree right back here will indeed be affected by the intelligent scaling. Alright, let me switch back over to make white my foreground color. And now I will remember that, make my paintbrush bigger. Here in the shoulder, we were seeing this distortion happening right in here. So I'm going to paint white. And again, what I'm doing here is I'm simply painting white paint into the new channel, the alpha channel, that I'm going to end up using to protect these parts of the image when I do the rescaling. Okay, here we go. Now, I'm going to double click over in the Channels palette on that new channel, and I'm going to call it Arm and Shoulder. Alrighty. I will now make my color channels active again by clicking on RGB in the Channels palette, and I'll turn off that mask. So I now have a mask that holds out that part of the arm and the part under her shoulder there that were getting distorted before. All of my image is still selected, so I'll do Command-Option-Shift-C. That gives me my content-aware scaling. And if I look up here in the option bar, I see that I have a Protect menu, and what this does is allow me to use an existing alpha channel, the one I just made, arm and shoulder, and essentially now is including those areas in the parts of the image it's protecting and not allowing to be distorted. click on the transform handles, and now you can see that her arm and that part of the shirt are not changing at all. We're getting exactly what we want. I'll go ahead and scale this part down. This allows you to not have to crop an image, but instead do this kind of scaling. And from a technological point of view, certainly it's got to be one of the most interesting things that is included with Photoshop CS4.